Hello everyone, Sable here, starting a new series covering UU Champions League, first iteration of this tournament within UU. Although NU has run this tour to success a couple times, and it's been a really good format. So the way this format works is not like a lot of team tournaments. You've got your standard two Scarlet and Violet slots, those don't change, those are there every week. But beyond that, it's 4 picks per team from any gen from 1 through 8, and you can only pick one gen on each side. But both teams can pick a gen, which results in a repeat where you've got 2 matches of the same gen. So in any given week, you have 0 to 2 matches of every gen, in addition to 2 Scarlet and Violet matches. So because of this, teams still have to draft players for every generation because you don't want to get caught with your pants down and not have a player for that gen and just give up a free win every single week. So it actually ends up leading to a format where most tiers are getting played almost every week in every slot, but there's still some like flexibility there where sometimes you'll see both teams pick a tier thinking they're confident in it and then end up with 2 games being played. You might see people drafting a backup in certain slots with the intent of picking that tier every week and sometimes getting the double up if the other team thinks they're stronger in their first slot. So in the case of NU, when they ran this tour, we actually had a ton of RBY games. Some weeks it was as much as 6 RBY NU games every week, which was amazing, like 6 out of 8 potential games. And teams double picking RBY is really wild. UUCL so far hasn't been quite that heavy on RBY, but it's been pretty respectable. And in this first week that I'm going to cover, it is 4 games, although one ended up being an activity call because I'll spoil my team lost the week and my opponent didn't show up for personal reasons. So I ended up taking an activity win. So I'm only going to have 3 actual replays. But RBY was actually picked 4 times in the first week. 1 time by each of 4 teams, and then 4 teams didn't pick it. But we still end up with every starter RBY player playing. Now, on these teams, a couple of them have really good backup RBYers. So I'll get to them as I cover the players. But for example, in this replay, this is Tay versus Melbelle. Melbelle, notable just for like changing names constantly, never using the same name, like a bunch of unregistered alts. Most of them are unintelligible gibberish for names. This one's at least readable, but I assume don't change color has already been taken long ago. Now, if I remember right for the teams that they're on, Tay is on Soul Dew Syndicate and Mel is on the Amazing Ambipoms. I might have that wrong, but I feel like 75% confident on that. I took a peek at the replay thing a second ago, but I don't want to open it here and spoil how many games each series went for. Tay, not super experienced in UU, but good player overall for lower tiers, especially like NU PU had a really good 7-0 in an NU tour once and won that tournament. UU, I don't think I've seen Tay play a UU tournament, but solid in other tiers. Also was on my team in RBYPL4 playing PU and went up on a positive run and we won that tournament together, which was really awesome. Big Tay fan. We co-manage a lot, such as for RBYPL. So looking forward to seeing what he can do. Mel, pretty much consensus, one of the top 3 UU players right now. Very commonly goes like 6-1 or other really good records in UU tours. I would say she's got a bit of a tilt problem overall, but like she's never a bad pickup. Her worst tournaments usually end in her going neutral, and if you can have a guaranteed neutral in an RBY tier, I think you're pretty happy with that as the minimum, and like a 6-1 or something as your maximum. It's very hard to be unhappy with that kind of consistency. I want to say like half her tours are 50% records, like 50% win loss, and half of them are 6-1s. And I would buy a player like that any day personally. So in this tour, she was definitely a top contender for picks. Tay, like known player, but not really known RBY UU player. But we are playing a brand new meta now. Like Rap is banned, Fire Spin's banned, and Slow Bro's legal. So 0 tournament games have been played of this new format. We have no idea what to expect. I have some theories that I put in a video on some UU speculation on my personal like initial viability list, but it's really just going to be down to seeing what people bring and how they adapt over the course of the tournament. So with that, I'm probably not going to be able to make as many predictions on teams, etc., as I normally would, but I'll try to offer what insight I can and not just make this me regurgitating what is on your screen. But let's get into it and see what I can offer you in this one. Game one, we've got a Persian lead from Mel and a Kadabra from Tay. So Persian lead is an idea Mel has been doing for a little while now across a few metas. The idea is barring Haunter, it's not really wallable, and even really bulky stuff like Lapras and Slowbro do not like switching into Persian Slash. It's it does like 29 to 34 to Lapras, a little bit less to Slowbro. It has T-Bolt for Slowbro, and it can also crit Lapras with T-Bolt, which I want to say is like 23 to 28 versus Lapras, and significantly more to Slowbro because of its worse special bulk. Versus Kadabra, Persian just misses the OHKO with Slash. I think it's 78 to 92 if I have my head calcs correct. So Kadabra could just T-Wave this, but it's not like really favored. Persian will KO you on the follow-up no matter what. You can't really recover through it. If you're leading Kadabra as Tay, I think you could have some options in the back to pivot around Persian. You could have like Golem and pivot off that. Dragonite is an okay Persian switch in, but it takes 31 to 37 from Slash, so it's not really ideal because after one of those, you might not ever be able to switch into anything again. Haunter is really the big Persian problem. Persian only 6-hit KOs it with Thunderbolt, and Haunter obviously has Hypnosis. The main thing that's problematic for Haunter is it usually doesn't 3-hit KO Persian, if I'm remembering my calcs correct. Like it's a 4-hit KO on average, unless you get like Psychic Drop into Thunderbolts. So Persian kind of can fish you with Thunderbolts and make you have to Hypnosis it, which is what the Persian user wants if there is a Haunter, since Haunter kind of invalidates it. So it's kind of hard to get sleep on a different target after breaking the Persian as Haunter. Also kind of risky because like Dugtrio or Golem might be able to get in if like you get T-Bolt Parrot or something else happens. Dugtrio doesn't even need the Parrot, can just hard switch in if you keep trying to attack. So it's not as bad as it looks, but Persian's definitely about as walled as you can be for this tier. And so there is a Haunter on Tay's side, so Mel going for Body Slam, and there's a good reason for that. Body Slam crit OHKO's Kadabra at least most of the time, I want to say, if not always. And of course, if you Para Slam the Kadabra, then you don't take any follow-up damage to finish it off, even if you take Para. So Mel just immediately going to start going for T-Bolts, 6-hit KO, and Tay immediately hits Hypnosis. So this is good for Haunter, and that Haunter is fast, it has booms, like it's got some pressure. The main problem for Haunter is if you let in Dugtrio, it really sucks. If you you don't really do very much damage to Hypno, your best is Nightshade 4-hit KO. So like you have to hit a boom. And you've just taken sleep off the table on the least valuable target against your Haunter team, since Haunter could have come in on this Persian multiple times. So it's going to be hard to extract much more value. This is actually kind of ideal for Haunter, I would say, because now you got your kind of like free hit, and now it's much more feasible to just take this Persian out. Plus, like this Persian's less effective as a check against other things. Now another Nightshade. So Dugtrio taking some significant chip, but on the flip side, like this isn't enough chip for Kadabra to KO it. Stuff like Dodrio, like Lapras was already OHKOing it. So like your Dugtrio's health doesn't matter as much as it would seem. Sand attack. Oh no. So like Tay making a very reasonable play of going to Dodrio on Dugtrio because it's a pretty hard turn to click anything but Earthquake. You don't want to let Haunter boom in your face and get a 2-for-1. But Sand Attack, now it could just really go either way, and Mel revealing that means it's probably not Rock Slide on this Doug, it's probably like Earthquake / Sand Attack sub. And now she might just go for sub cheese and try to beat the Dodrio that way, and it immediately goes to the left. So this, okay, so it's Quake Slide, and then it's sub sand. That's so just gonna get one more try at this. Hopefully Tay doesn't miss another one. It would be really sad to miss on 2/3 accuracy to miss 2 out of 3. But now gonna go to Kang and try to see. But Tay goes right to Slowbro. So Slowbro is really interesting in this new meta. The thing is, it's got really good physical bulk, right? But it's really slow, and it kind of gets pushed to run Psychic because you're walled by Lapras if you don't. It also wants to run Surf because otherwise you don't do damage to Dugtrio, you don't do damage to Hypno. I mean, you can run Seismic Toss, but like you want Surf for things like Golem too, because Golem outspeeds Slowbro and Psychic doesn't even 2-hit KO it. So like Slowbro's kind of caught here because this tier is not as slow as OU. You don't get as much time for other things to support you and spread parrot at all your checks and everything. Like Slowbro is a really, really strong physical check here, but it still can get taken down by one Dodrio or Dugtrio crit, taking half off of it, or like near half. And then suddenly it's in the danger zone already. And Mel is showing like a ridiculous amount of physical offense. Persian Doug Kang. Like it's possible this is just Persian Doug Kang Dodrio Lapras Hypno, in which case it's just full physical offense plus like the two best guys in the tier. Which means like on the one side, Slowbro is good into that, right? Like it's good into Kangaskhan, it's okay in a Dugtrio, it's not good into Persian, and it can sort of check Dodrio like serviceably. So between it and Haunter, like you kind of have these four somewhat checked, at least decently. And if you spread some T-Wave, then like your own Hypno Lapras, if you have them, can go really far here. But on the flip side, like it's under such a ridiculous amount of pressure from all these guys, it's not going to last very long. Besides that, Tay's got Dodrio, so there's like some physical offense here. Kadabra can apply some pressure if Hypno gets removed, because I doubt Mel has a Slowbro at this point. But on Tay's side, because you have the Slowbro, your last two are Hypno Lapras, then you're kind of lacking on physical offense and really all in on 3 slow guys and a couple of fast guys to do all the work. With Kadabra in the lead, it's expecting to take sleep from Hypno more often than not. And really Tay getting bailed out by the fact that Persian lead obviously is going to attack, so you get a free Haunter entry. So I have to imagine Tay doesn't have both Lapras and Hypno. It's going to be interesting to see. This, as I think about it, I feel like this might be. I'm going to check as I'm saying this, but it reminds me of one of the sample teams that I built, which are very speculative. So, like, not to say, oh, this is a great sample Tay is using, but rather just kind of going, wait, this looks like something I made. Yeah, it kind of does. Haunter not being in the lead is a bit different from this like no Lapras idea. Like I put Haunter in the lead instead of this Kadabra, but like otherwise the Pokemon look the same enough that I could see this being a remix on that idea. Not to claim that Tay is just borrowing off me, because I'm sure that he built things on his own with his own ideas. But oops. I was looking that up on my phone as I said that, because I don't really want to tab out and put it on the screen as I'm scrolling through Smogon and hoping to find it. Anyway, that's enough of a tangent. Either way, Slowbro's under a lot of pressure and doesn't really have the move slots to get everything you'd want in. And just showing Psychic, so clicking Psychic, expecting Dugtrio to try to pivot back in on T-Wave. And now, like, we're already seeing why Slowbro is not like a very permanent physical check, even if it has rest. Like, sure, you stop this Kang, but something else will get in on you. And because that drop came before the paralysis, it means that Kang was still faster than it, but a very nice pivot to Haunter. It's not like Jugtrio can come in on this, so Tay kind of forcing the KO. Haunter also notably pretty good against Lapras. It's one of the things that doesn't get 2-hit KO'd or O-code by Blizzard, so you can kind of switch this in once. But of course, you have to let Dugtrio in one time, and so Tay's just going to let this go and not risk getting crit on the Dodrio or something on entry or called out in some way. But here we go with the sand attacks again. And this time gonna hit. But it does leave Mel in a nice spot to bring in something like Lapras and really threaten to take this out. Tay getting the hit through Para, It's more likely than not, but works out. And that crit T-Bolt doesn't really matter. High roll T-Bolt would have KO'd, but also it was recharging, so would have been a kill there anyway. Hypno comes in, pretty good Lapras check. Lapras Blizzard does 30 to 36 to Hypno, so between that and Psychic drops and T-Wave, it's just very threatening. Now, this is interesting. Slowbro's worn down a bit, so there is a bit of a risk if Hypno just clicks Seismic Toss of Slowbro getting obliterated. And we'll see. Goes for the Hypno, so doesn't want to risk Tay staying in and just clicking T-Wave, and now we'll see what the plan is. It seems to be go to Lapras because it's already down to 50, and then play some Blizzbolt Mind Games. I wonder if she's going to Blizz here, but we're not going to find out. And now this is just getting very precarious because switching Hypno into Psychic means taking Chip and potential drops, which are not great for you. Switching into T-Wave would be even worse. No call out here. Tay doesn't really have to make a call out from this position. But this time staying in and predicting Mel is not going to click Hypnosis because Slowbro will come in again. Mel very smartly calling that out. I think that was a nice call to like repeat the move, even though Tay could have changed up the play this time, but just not getting rewarded here. And I think that's got to be part of Tay's calculation as well, is like even if she goes for it, there's a 60% chance to even hit. And if he wins the speed tie and gets the T wave, it becomes a 45%. So it's still not like great. But now she's going to toss, expecting obviously Slowbro is going to come in. And on Tay's side, I wonder if he's going to rest it, and he does. The Lapras isn't looking like much of a threat at this point, although it still can like come in, threaten this. I think you kind of have to go like Kadabra here. So Hypno, really risking. Okay, so I forgot about Lapras Sing momentarily as I was thinking about that. So Mel playing a lot of mind games, making a lot of correct calls, but ultimately like Sing through Para is not very favored. So I do think it's right for Tay to go to Hypno anyway, especially with the Kadabra as backup. But because that works out, Mel is forced to either consider stacking more Hypno HP and risking a potential drop, which makes it even more useless, or just sack the Lapras. I think maybe it might have been a little premature letting go of Lapras, but Slowbro would have woken up on the next time anyway, so it's not really ideal for Lapras either way. And now going to go for the Hypnosis on Wake Up, and Tay just letting it go. Probably a Mono-Psychic Slowbro, so not the scariest threat in a Hypno. And immediately going to Hypno to not let whatever Mel's last is come in. And I was right about my initial thought. It's just full-on physical offense spam with Hypno Lapras as support, since they're just like the bulky guys that can switch into physical and special attacks respectively. So very offensive team, very little leeway. And notably, this team is pretty Kadabra weak outside of the Persian and the Hypno, which is a lot to put on them because it's not like Persian can really switch into Kadabra. So Tay's team, really ideal team against Mel, in addition to getting a bit of luck with dodging these sleep moves. But overall, just like Kadabra plus Haunter, very brutal to play against from Mel's side. And I think the Slowbro actually also pretty hard to play against. So Mel gonna get out here and not risk the wave to take the somewhat free switch, because it's pretty risky for Tay to not T-wave that, of course. Now, the thing is notably like there is the consideration that Tay just needs 50% on this Dodrio and for it to not be set up with agility, and then Kadabra could KO it anyway. So Tay is not very far from a win, and one assumes with Lapras in the back, which also just Oko's Dodrio, that taking out this Hypno also would win. And is this Mono Psychic Hypno from Tay? I think that does suggest rest, which I think the idea here is pretty similar to that sample team I was thinking of, where it's triple psychic of a million T waves plus a bit of rest from Slowbro Hypno to, like, you kind of want to paralyze the physical attackers and then you can rest in their faces. Hypno can rest in the face of special attackers after a side drop. So I think that's what Tay is doing here, but ultimately, like, you don't want to rest and concede momentum for Dodrio to potentially break through, so you just keep psychicking now and trust that your lasts can win. So you go Kadabra, take this out. I think the idea here with Kadabra first is just don't risk anything to a miss on Dodrio. You can just para it, but I guess he just wants the Psychic. Okay. So crit high roll. Psychic actually... I'm not sure. Yeah, Psychic not... I don't remember the damage against Dodrio is. Doesn't show it in the replay, but I think it's like a favored roll to 2 at KO Dodrio, but it's definitely not guaranteed. But Tay gets it anyway. I think, like, as lucky as that might seem, Lapras doesn't get O-code if Tay has one. Maybe there's not... I guess there's probably not a Lapras based on how bad that would be for the speed tier. Yeah, I think Tay didn't have a Lapras, and that's why he did this. Go to Kadabra, take your 50 on Dodrio, and trust that your last can beat it, but the last could have been crit O-code, so we don't know. Yeah, I'm really wondering what Tay had last. I think making assumptions about lasts in this early of the meta is a bit silly, so like ignore me thinking a little too hard about lasts. Like Lapras could fit on this and it wouldn't be the worst thing. You could run a million things in that last slot, and I think this early with this little optimization, it would be pretty valid. So I don't have any serious thoughts yet. But let's get into game 2 and see how this one goes. Kadabra from Mel this time into a Clefable from Tay. So Clefable has some big upsides, not really having any weaknesses is big. All the coverage moves plus stab, body slam, hyper beam, which are a little bit weaker than Dragonite's non-stab ones. Pretty good. I mean, when you hit as hard as a guy with 134 attack, I think that's pretty solid. It has T-Wave. The main downsides to Clefable are that with no weaknesses also comes no resistances. And it's slow. It speed ties with Lapras, which is not really where you want to be. Slower than Hypno is definitely not where you want to be. And that's been a big problem when I try to think of how you use this Pokemon. I definitely think it has uses, but I think the teams are limited. But like spots like this are great. When you're against Elite Kadabra, you have Stab Body Slam and it can't recover through it, and eventually you will hit the para. So Mel definitely down a bit now, but reveals a Clef of her own. And Tay just going to T-Wave that to start off with, and that kind of helps give you a little insurance against it. Blizzard from Clef, maybe expecting a pivot, or maybe just, unsure. Guess just you want to kind of cover for some possibilities, and Blizzard damage is not much worse than Body Slam in this matchup. But costs are there with that 10%. And Tay just Hyper Beaming, not wanting to mess around with the potential of anything going wrong and just letting something else close it out instead, as Mel ends up getting the KO. But it's basically a 2-to-1 lead off the start there, and here's a Dragonite. So Tay just running all the guys with coverage to start off, and this will probably bait in Lapras since there's no more wrap. And just T-bolting, trusting that Mel is not going to immediately throw the Blizzard, and she sings, so I think Tay is happy with either outcome of that sing. If that hits, it hits a Dragonite instead of like a Lapras or a Hypno, and then you have some options from there. Miss is amazing because now even if this Lapras Blizzard's going to take another T-Bolt, it's going to do like 30 to 36 or crit it out of the game. And Blizzard's this time not willing to risk Tay, just making a cheeky stay in a second time. But you get 67 on Lapras and now Hypno in. The problem is it's a bit out of Psychic range, so you have to just go for Hypnosis. So Tay didn't have anything better there. So like no Hyper Beam clicker and nothing like that. Interesting. That's rough. You lost a whole Hypno after losing a Dragonite to get this Lapras low for you. That's tough. So now gonna pivot through Raichu. So why didn't the Raichu come out? I guess because it baits Hypno, and Hypno switches pretty well into Raichu and gets sleep anyway. But surely you could have sent in Raichu, clicked a T-Wave call out. Yeah, like that, exactly. You could have just done that earlier. And Golem coming in, but just getting psyched in the face. So Mel's seeing that coming, which I find really interesting. And Golem, Rock Slide taking out Lapras. I believe Earthquake would have done it there anyway, but maybe covering for flyers. And so Raichu's in. This is an interesting spot for Tay because if that gets paralyzed, then Golem's just going to murder it immediately. Golem Earthquake, I'm almost certain is a guaranteed OHKO on this because Doug Earthquake is pretty close. Might be like a roll. I think it's a pretty favored roll for Golem, but it's either way, it does a million damage. So now, like, Tay has a Raichu. That Raichu could switch in, obviously, but it would take some damage, and there'd be no reason for Mel not to immediately go back to Hypno. It's pretty hard to actually get this Golem to do the thing it's supposed to do. I think maybe your route here is go to Raichu, double back to Golem. But yeah, it's tricky here for sure. But Mel ahead of me on that thought and actually doubles first. And now it's tricky, but like there are some chances for wake turns for Tay, and I think waking this Hypno and sacking something else to sleep would go really well. Like if you can sack Golem to sleep, I think that's way better for Tay here. If you're switching Lapras into Hypno even paralyzed, I think that's a sign that your game is going awry, but Tay definitely realizing that this Lapras is not going to be the guy that wins this game, and you just need to use it to force damage right now because it's pretty hard to switch into. So there's another one, and now it's starting to look plausible for Tay to get this Hypno in range and get Raichu through it so you can paralyze. I wonder what Mel's last is. We've seen Lapras Hypno. It's unlikely to be a Slowbro because there's also a Clefable, so this team's already pretty slow. I would think she has a physical attacker because there hasn't really been any of that on this team, and if so, it probably comes out now. No, okay, so whatever's last, it's definitely not like I have to assume it's something that can beat Golem. So like Persian would be really good for her, I assume. Can't really switch into it because Bubble Beam. Yeah, I would think like Persian would be great. Doug Trio can take out Golem from here, I think. Can't remember my head calcs that well right now. But if I do wonder if either of them are packing agility. And there it is. But if Mel has agility, then like Tay is just screwed. But otherwise, Golem comes in, quakes this, and we just see if the last can take out Golem. Golem Boom, not likely to kill most things, though, so it just kind of depends. Like, Dodrio would be an instant win for Tay, but it's a Kang, so this should be a win for Mel, because Golem Boom would not take this out, but you have to go for the crit. Yep, no crit, so this will be a win for Mel. Hypno would have to wake up and then get a 256, so pretty unlikely, and yeah, that's going to be 1-1 for Mel. So a little bit more physical offense showing up at the very end. She's kind of got like all of your safety pieces. You got that lead Kadabra to deny like lead Haunter stuff and give you some just immediate T-wave pressure. You've got your Lapras Hypno, which are the safe brings. Raichu, which kind of covers for grounds plus hits Lapras or Slowbro at the same time. Just kind of got like all the basic pieces here. It looks like a pretty Doug Trio slash Golem vulnerable team, I'll say, not weak. Because you definitely need paralysis for Golem to do stuff. I think Doug is a lot scarier to this team. It's pretty frail. Like you have to kind of just hard switch Kang and Lapin and hope they don't take crits, but no Doug Trio, there's a Golem here, which works out a lot nicer for Mel, and she finds the win. So well done to her. On Tay's side, I think like there's a good amount of support for Golem. You've got 4 para spreaders here, which is, well, presumably this Dragonite could just not have T-Wave, who knows. But I think just the way it was played kind of mishandled resources and ended up with Golem, Raichu, Hypno all not getting to be used to their potential. I did like how the Dragonite was played at first, but I think you do have to make a call out. After that first one, like it's so risky for Mel, I think you have to call it out and just hard Hypno immediately. Either way, like it's hard to fault someone on those Dragonite plays. It's such a risky spot that like it makes sense to just go for. But I do think Tay made some mistakes in the middle that gave it to Mel. So 1-1, here we are on game 3. Dodrio versus Kadabra lead. So this is interesting. Kadabra can crit Dodrio out, as we've seen. Dodrio OHKOs Kadabra outright if it clicks Hyper Beam. Body Slam Para obviously is a win in the matchup. But it's tricky because if you Body Slam and don't Para, then Kadabra can just 2-hit KO the Dodrio out. So a lot of stuff that goes into this turn one. You can Hyper Beam and just like hit into a Lapras and get taken out, but like you do chunk the Lapras for almost half its HP if it does that. There could be a Golem or something to catch it. There could be a Haunter to pivot. So we'll see exactly what they both do, and I'll say something about this game. T-Wave and Para. So unfortunate outcome for Tay in the start. Psychic 47 to 55, so favored to it KO, but in this case low rolls and gets the Hyper Beam. Crit didn't matter. Hyper Beam always KOs Kadabra. And Tay gonna switch out of that immediately and eat a huge counter. I was actually thinking, I wonder if Mel just clicks counter, anticipating that Dodrio either is gonna attack or switch out. And if it attacks, like it's not the worst case, and you still take it out. But now Tay's just down really bad. It probably has to go for like Sing or something here. No, just Blizzes, and I mean that's the safe call. Like you take your 2 at KO on Kang, and that Hyper Beam miss should put Tay right back in it actually. So a bit unfortunate for sure for Mal, but happens. And Raichu in looking very pressuring kind of forces Hypno if Tay doesn't have anything better. Just going for a raw Thunderbolt, so not trying to call any kind of switch out or something. And now Tay gets a free Hypno click, but misses. So this is interesting. I do think Tay is right to sack Dodrio here. It's paralyzed, so it's not going to do that much. Sack it, get Lapras in. It's super threatening. Like you can't really switch Raichu into Blizzard. Hypno is scary in a Blizzard. It's extra scary if Lapras just makes a call out and sings. Mel, pretty aggressive player. I would think she might even stay with Dodrio when this Lapras comes in. But Body Slam, crit doesn't really matter. You're probably not going to try to set up your Dodrio in front of the other Dodrio. I do wonder if she switches, and she does, but does Tay call it? Tay does not call it out, so just blizzes, gets a decent roll, and gets put to sleep, and now kind of wondering what Tay's going to do to answer this Dodrio. It's pretty scary. The big upside is sleep is still on the table. The downside is you take a Hypno T-Wave on entry. So now you're kind of just fishing against a Hypno that is probably going to wear you down. Let's see. Just going for the Seismic Toss. I guess that 40% Hypno, not many things can take that out at 40 without a Hyper Beam, and the two best Hyper Beam clickers are already down on Tay's side. So one wonders what is the last. I think Persian doesn't usually get that roll. I think it's like 36 to 43. D-Knight can get this roll with a Hyper Beam. It is a bit risky because presumably Mel's last is going to be a Lapras. If you Hyper Beam and a Lapras, you're just dead. But gets it, Mel not risking anything, pretty understandably. No Lapras here. So I do wonder if this is no Lapras. Dragonite versus Raichu is pretty okay for Dragonite. It's only a 4-hit KO with T-Bolt. Blizzard in the Hyper Beam, I think, has KO odds. I want to say Blizz does about 34 to 40 to Raichu. Dragonite hits really hard. But here comes a Dugtrio. So if this catches a T-Wave, okay, this is really big. So important to note, Earthquake does not OHKO Raichu, and Surf does not OHKO Dugtrio. The problem for Tay is there is a Dodrio which can switch into Dugtrio one time. Dodrio Hyper Beam, I want to say, is like a 43.6 roll to OHKO Dugtrio. It might be better than that, but I can't say for sure. My brain is fried today. I think Kang's is only like a 17.9%, so Dodrio's might be higher. But either way, these two don't OHKO each other, and Dodrio coming in is a very real threat. I don't think Tay can afford to let Dodrio in. Tangela last. Dropping Lapras for a Tangela. Oh goodness. I mean, I guess you can say dropping Lapras for a Raichu, for a Kadabra, for a Dodrio, whatever. But in this case, I mean, Tangela is pretty much the best Dugtrio check there is. But on the flip side, it's so useless outside of that, and with no bind, it's not like you can paralyze Dragonite on entry and then stop it from ever getting anything, you know? Paralyzed Dragonite still looks really threatening here. And Swords Dancing immediately expecting a pivot through Lapras to catch Stun Spore, but instead just going to catch a Blizzard in the face, and it doesn't really do much damage back. And it misses, so this Tangela is now useless. It doesn't even check Dugtrio anymore, so it's just going to have to be sacked. Now, just going to point out here, Lapras O-code both of these and would have won, so yeah. And Body Slam, nice mid ground from Mel. Surf now in range to KO. Tay subbing down once, trying to call out, hey, I think you're going to switch, but I don't want to fully risk it. Another sub. And here's the Surf this time. So Doug's just going to get one swing on whatever it is, and we'll see how that goes. Or two if it had called the Dodrio, but that's a hard call. So now you're just going to sack it, understandably, and get your Dragonite in. I do wonder what the set is on this Dragonite. Blizzard will take out this Dodrio for certain, and Hyper Beam Blizzard, which are both revealed, I think is enough to usually take out the Raichu. And if not, you get 2 crit chances on that, and while Raichu doesn't do that much damage. So I guess from Mel, the optimal play here is you just straight up Hyper Beam the Dragonite in the face, take your about 50% on it, and try to have Raichu win from there. I do, if it's Agility Dragonite, that would be a nice curveball that actually would make the Hyper Beam a lot less relevant. Let's see what happens. No crit. Deonite now in 2-hit KO range of Raichu, and it does have Agility and take the KO with T-Bolt for the safe hit. Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to wait for Raichu to come in so I can just double check the rolls since they're right here. 28 to 34. I don't know why I thought 34 to 40. That's a crazy overestimate. So we've got a min roll of about 90 here from Blizz plus Beam. Max roll is about 103, 104, 103. So I think that comes out to around a 22, 28% to just KO with Blizz and a Hyper Beam. So you got like 20, I'm going to say 25%. Let's call it the middle of that. 25% to win this outright. Raichu crit T-Bolt KO's Dragonite. So that's like a 20% Raichu just takes this unless you just Hyper Beam crit on the first turn, which would be a silly play to go for. Tay gets Blizzard freeze odds, Blizzard crit in the Hyper Beam KOs, Hyper Beam crit KOs. So Mel gets 1 crit chance and the Blizzard miss chance. Dragonite gets 2 crit chances and the Blizzard freeze chance. I think that all comes out to almost 50-50, but slightly Mel favored here. But I would not count Tay out just yet. There's also... no, there's certainly not anything else. I think those are pretty much the main things. So we'll see. Blizzard, no crit, but a freeze. Yeah, so Tay wins. No ifs, ands, or buts. Bit lucky, but I would say that was probably close to a 50-50 end game because of the agility. So I like the agility night call. A lot of physical offense from Tay on this last team, and no T-Wave Dragonite with instead agility to kind of counter set up and sweep stuff. Definitely got some luck with stuff like the Stun Spore miss, but also like admirably played back from a really bad deficit with that counter hit into a full Kangaskhan. So, I don't know. I think probably Mel played this one a bit better overall, but I do think the teams are unoptimized. I think stuff like bringing a Tangela just gave up odds that didn't have to exist for no reason. So, like, I can't even really fault Tay and say, like, oh, Mel played better. Ultimately, like, Tay brought good Pokemon in, I want to say, all 3 games. Even if I wasn't a super big fan of that game, too, and I just don't agree with bringing the Tangela in game 3. Even if you think there's going to be a Dugtrio, you can check that with flyers that actually do damage to things. I don't think the roll compression is worth it just for a more consistent sleep against like Dugtrio or something, because if you get that sleep earlier, like she did, this is just a completely dead slot that gets like a stun spore and moves on with its life. I can kind of see it if you're on Body Slam Hyper Beam and just trust there's no Golem, because at least then you do a little bit of damage to stuff you paralyze. But I don't know. Like, I don't want to say, oh, this is just bad. I think Mel is a smart player who had good reasons for the brings that she did. And I don't think Tangela is just a completely useless piece of trash. I guess my point of view is I would not bring Tangela in my first week of a totally new meta. I would be looking for some patterns in people's brings and play before I just go, let's load a Tangela and kind of save it for the right person. Because even though it hit Doug Trio here, it still ended up just not doing stuff. I don't know. Hard to be too critical. Week one of a new meta, I think both of them played fine. And I think definitely there was some like very influential luck, like this freeze that we are sitting on right now on this end screen. So I don't want to be too harsh. It's not like Ubers where there's some very well established ideas 2.2. And ultimately, Tay comes away with the win today, but that's RBY, and that's Pokemon in general. Sometimes the game will go in directions you don't expect. So, good game to both of them, and I'll see you all when I get to the next one. Click like or subscribe, leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you think of this UU coverage and how I can make it better because honestly, like I feel like I have some insight on these games, but I also feel like predicting lasts and team structures is very iffy in such a new meta. So I'm just trying my best to talk about what's going on. But let me know what you think, and I'll see you soon with another one.